1 p.m. on November 2nd, 2020, in the quiet town of Anden, Belgium, 83-year-old Paulette Landriax mysteriously vanished. Her husband was outside, casually hanging laundry in the garden, unaware that this would be the last time he'd see her. By the afternoon, Paulette was gone. When her family realized she was missing, panic set in. They alerted police, and what followed was no ordinary search. 50 officers, rescue dogs, thermal helicopters, and even drones scoured the area. But no trace of Paulette was ever found. This wasn't the first time she had disappeared. Paulette suffered from Alzheimer's, and in the years leading up to her vanishing, she would often wander off, knocking on neighbors' doors for no reason, sometimes forgetting who her own children were. Usually, her husband would find her just a few steps from their home. But this time, there was only silence. After weeks of searching, investigators gave up, assuming she had fallen into the nearby Meuse River. The case was left unsolved, and her family began to grieve without answers. But then, nearly 2 years later, in October 2022, something chilling happened. A police investigator was casually looking at the area on Google Street View when he noticed something strange. Right there, frozen in time, was Paulette herself, captured on camera, crossing the street from her home toward a neighbor's garden. The image reignited the case. Search teams returned to the area, and this time, just below the neighbor's garden, at the bottom of a steep hill, they found her remains. The autopsy confirmed the tragic truth. Paulette had accidentally fallen from an unenclosed section of the garden and died there, hidden from view all along. Her final moments had been captured by the passing Google Maps car, a haunting photograph of her walking unknowingly to her death. The eerie part: despite helicopters, drones, and dozens of officers searching the area in 2020, no one found her body at the time. To this day, no one can explain how such an extensive search overlooked her. Today, that street view image is gone, replaced by an updated view of the town. But for a brief moment, anyone in the world could open Google Maps and see Paulette, unknowingly caught in the last image of her life. In July 2011, 2 armed men broke into a quiet suburban home in Oklahoma City. The house was empty, filled with valuables, and for the intruders, it seemed like the perfect opportunity. But their robbery didn't go as planned. Only a few minutes later, the homeowner returned. She walked straight into her own house, only to find 2 strangers looting it. Instead of fleeing, the men turned on her. They held her at gunpoint as they continued to ransack the home. For over an hour, she stood there, terrified, convinced they were going to shoot her before leaving. Miraculously, they didn't harm her. When the ordeal was finally over, the men vanished into the night, leaving her alive but traumatized. Out of fear of retaliation, the woman refused to reveal her identity to the press. Police investigated, but with no witnesses and no solid leads, the case eventually went cold. It seemed justice would never come. But then, 3 years later, in July 2014, something completely unexpected happened. The woman's neighbor was browsing Google Maps Street View when she noticed something unusual. On her screen were 2 men casually walking down the very same street, and they looked exactly like the suspects described by the victim. She immediately contacted the woman, who confirmed it. These were the same men who had terrorized her 3 years earlier. Based on the direction they were walking, the image had likely been captured minutes before the robbery. It was an eerie coincidence. The Street View van had unknowingly documented the criminals on their way to commit the crime. Unfortunately, the picture wasn't perfect. The image was grainy, and Google's automatic face blurring software made it impossible to positively identify the men. Because of that, police still haven't been able to track them down. But now, with this image and a string of clues, investigators at least have a chance. And thanks to Google Maps, the two armed robbers who once disappeared into the shadows may not be able to hide forever. On a chilly night in October 2006, 72-year-old David Lee Niles met a friend at Jake's Bar in Byrontown, Michigan. It was a place he visited often, usually staying for hours. But this night would be different. Earlier that year, David had been diagnosed with cancer. After only a brief conversation with his friend, he left abruptly, saying the pain was too much to bear. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. When his family couldn't reach him, they reported him missing. Police launched a statewide search, but it led nowhere. There were no witnesses, no trail, no clues. David had simply vanished. By 2011, 5 years later, hope had faded. His family published an obituary that read, "David Lee Niles, age 72 of Wyoming, passed away, and only God knows the time and place." The case went cold, and it seemed the mystery would remain unsolved forever. But then, nearly a decade later, fate intervened. In November 2015, Brian Hausman, an employee of the Cook Funeral Home in Byron Township, was decorating the company's Christmas tree. From the lift, as he reached to place the star on top, he looked out over the property and noticed something strange in the pond nearby. It looked like the outline of a submerged car. He called police immediately, and when investigators pulled up Google Maps satellite view, they saw it too. The shadowy shape of a car sitting just beneath the surface of the water. A dive team was sent in, and their suspicions were confirmed. A car had been hidden at the bottom of the pond for years. Later that morning, a wrecking crew dragged the vehicle to shore. Inside, officers found skeletal remains and a wallet belonging to David Lee Niles. The long-missing man had finally been found. The discovery brought his family a measure of closure, but it also raised more questions than answers. Had David, suffering from cancer and lifelong bouts of depression, chosen to end his life that night? Or was it a tragic accident? No one will ever know for sure. But what's certain is that, for nearly 10 years, Google Maps had been quietly holding the answer to a mystery that haunted his family. In the 1980s and 90s, Gioacchino Gamino was one of Italy's most wanted men. A feared gangster from a Sicilian mafia clan in Agrigento, he lived in constant conflict with Cosa Nostra, Sicily's main mafia network. Gamino's life was defined by arrests and escapes. First captured in 1984 for murder and other mafia-related crimes, he was released soon after. Then, in 1998, he was caught again in Barcelona, and this time sentenced to life in prison. But Gamino wasn't done. In 2002, just 4 years into his sentence in a Rome prison, he escaped during a chaotic disturbance. And then, he vanished. For nearly 2 decades, Gamino lived in hiding. He reinvented himself in a town near Madrid, Spain, under a new name, Manuel Mormino. He got married, worked as a chef at a restaurant called Manu's Kitchen, and even opened his own fruit and vegetable shop, Manu's Garden. All the while, Sicilian police searched for him. In 2014, they issued a European arrest warrant. Investigators believed he was hiding somewhere in Spain, but no one could pinpoint exactly where. And then came the breakthrough, from the unlikeliest of places. While combing through leads, investigators stumbled upon a Google Street View image outside Manu's garden. 2 men stood talking. One of them looked eerily familiar, the face of the fugitive they had hunted for years. Still, they needed more proof. The trail led them online, where they discovered the Facebook page for Manu's Kitchen. There, in plain sight, was a photograph of a man in chef's attire, none other than Gioacchino Gamino himself. On December 17, 2022, police finally made their move. Gamino was arrested and extradited to Sicily, where he now serves his life sentence. And when police confronted him, the once feared gangster was stunned. He even asked them, bewildered, "How did you find me? I haven't spoken to my family in 10 years." The answer was simple. Google Maps had betrayed him. In 2009, police in Zurich, Switzerland, were deep into a nationwide investigation to dismantle illegal marijuana growing operations. For months, detectives combed through leads, determined to bring down the drug rings that were operating in the shadows. At one point in the investigation, officers turned to an unlikely tool: Google Earth. They began scanning addresses tied to 2 suspicious farmers. And that's when one detective noticed something unusual. From above, the fields near Rapperswil, in the northeastern state of Thurgau, looked perfectly ordinary, except for one section. The crop pattern was off, strange rows that didn't match the corn around it. Zooming closer, the image revealed something staggering: a hidden cannabis plantation stretching across more than 2 acres, tucked away inside the cornfield, right next to the farmer's home. This single discovery set off a chain reaction. Police raided the area, arrested 16 people, and seized 1.1 metric tons of marijuana, along with 900,000 Swiss francs in cash, the equivalent of around $1.1 million. Investigators later revealed that the drug ring had allegedly trafficked up to 7 tons of marijuana between 2004 and 2008, earning anywhere from 3 to 10 million francs per year. Norbert Glossner, head of Zurich Police's Special Narcotics Unit, called it an interesting chance discovery. But it was more than that. It showed how even the most secretive operations could be exposed by a satellite orbiting silently above. Since then, the fields have been plowed over, erasing all trace of the hidden plantation. But in Switzerland, where recreational marijuana remains illegal, the case still serves as a chilling reminder. Even from space, you can't hide forever.